Another video today. I know. Very strange. I guess... That's Pansy again. I guess this is a reaction video to one I saw by Dr. Todd Grande. I actually watch all his videos. I think almost all of his videos. No, I don't watch all his videos. He does a whole bunch of videos about, like, reactions to murder cases in the United States and what kind of person would murder somebody else, and I'm really not interested. Other than that, though, basically I watch everything he does. And he put out a video today that was signs of avoidant traits in a husband or something like that. It's a series that he's got. It's very interesting. I'm very terrified of these videos because it seems like it's inviting people to self-diagnose other people, which is even worse than self-diagnosing yourself. I cannot think of any situation where it would be helpful for, a spouse to come to another spouse and say, hey, I saw this video and I'm pretty sure you have this personality disorder. I mean, that's just not going to fly. So I kind of don't see the point, except the information that he's putting in these videos is actually really kind of spot on. And this one about the avoidance person, which actually, again, he did a really good job of, I think there were 3 separate things he was talking about at once, which was avoidant personality disorder, avoidant traits, avoidant attachment, all these different things, that and social anxiety disorder, that people get confused with each other and lumped together. And he was also making distinction between avoidant personality disorder and schizoid. And it was a lot of stuff. It was all jumbled. It was organized, but it was jumbled all together. So it wasn't a singular, this is what this video is about type video. I don't know. I think he puts out some really good stuff, though. So I recommend following him, even if, he's on the treatment side. And so he is sort of believing the hype of, the research that he's done and studies that they've done. And he even admits that the number of people that do these studies is very limited, and the type of person that does these studies is also not a sort of general bit of the population of the people who have this disorder. Like I said before, I have personally participated in a university study on personality disorders, and I think it's a great thing that if you can do it, I highly suggest it, because the more research that's done, the more they're actually going to find some real information that can really help people. Okay, yeah. That's a whole bunch of disclaimers. The point is this, and what was, he said this, he articulated it, and it's like such a huge part of a person with avoidant personality disorder's life that it's almost like background, and if you don't focus on it, it's like a given. Anyway, what he was talking about in a whole bunch of things, some of them I completely disagree with, some of them I completely agreed with, and this one really hit home, which is any sort of disagreement. And I mean, his was extreme. His was like, if somebody is talking to you and they look away, you know what? As a person with avoidant personality disorder and not social anxiety disorder, well, not traditional social anxiety disorder, but I mean, I do not qualify for the diagnosis of social anxiety disorder. And I definitely do for avoidant personality disorder. He said that if you're even looking away during a conversation, if you look away when you're talking to somebody, yeah, that's a bit extreme, because in my life, I actually kind of prefer it if I don't do a hard stare at somebody and have extended eye contact. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm oddball. I definitely never take that out of the equation when I'm describing what's going on here. I'm, have my own way of manifesting. Definitely, I've said that over and over again too. But what he said was that is just should be outlined and underlined and bolded and, put ooga horns behind it, is that anything that happens, a person, and he said a husband, whatever, it's male or female, anything that happens, goes on in a relationship, the person with avoidant personality disorder assumes that they have done something wrong. They assume they caused it themselves, and they can do massive emotional damage. So destructive. You sit there and you just, especially, it's even worse when you just cannot come up with a reason why somebody is quote unquote rejecting you, even though that's not usually what's going on. What's going on is they have a life and there's something going on, and something's come up basically. But you twist it in your head and say that it is your fault and try to take the blame for it and concoct a blame for it. And I'm doing this big time now, obviously, if you saw the video earlier today. I'm in my family, they've realized that this is a problem that I have. I don't know if it's like a chicken and the egg type situation. I have no idea which came first. I don't know if the family just burdened me with this, and so eventually it sunk in, or if I always had this sort of responsibility type reaction, and they were like, oh, I'll take advantage of it and lump onto it. I don't know, one or the other. At any rate, in my personal experience, it helps a lot if whoever's you're with, that sounds weird, but whatever the interaction is that you're having, if it could be like your boss, it could be a family member, it could be a friendship, it could be a romantic, I guess, I don't know, I've never actually had this sort of situation with a romantic person, but I assume it's like a schema and it would go across the board. Have them tell you why they are leaving. Have them do it enough that it becomes second nature. I think it would probably be easiest to start that type of thing with a work type situation, because usually people do have to check in with each other and say, hey, I'm leaving to do this or whatever. And you can do that in your interpersonal relationships too, like of all sorts. That does not mean that it's going to be like waving a magic wand and suddenly you're like, oh, cool, well, I understand this person needs to talk to this other person. Because you know what your brain is going to do to you. It's going to say, okay, well, that's because the other person is better and you're not worthy of them wasting their time with you. And your brain will come back to that always, if you have avoidant personality disorder, because the problem with avoidant personality disorder is it never ever goes away. It's there always, whether you're interacting with somebody or not. And if it doesn't have a current relationship to interact with, then you'll ruminate about an old one. And it will go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Who's that? That's Pansy. Here, let me put her in. Having a bath. Anyway, so I am dealing with that right now. With a person who has, oh thanks Pans, an issue that has nothing to do with me. At all. And I know it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I'm thinking is that I'm not worthy and that this person has come to their senses and has disappeared, because that's what anybody would do if they had the choice, is that they would find somebody else to hang out with that was not such a drag. To the point where, and this is insulting and I know this, it's like, okay, well, this person must be lying, has to be lying if they're saying that it's, there's not a reason to disappear. Okay, I might have an extreme case. My case, because it's like years and years and years and ripped apart so many times, and really paid attention to the intricacy of what is going on, because I want to figure this stupid stuff out. And again, over and over and over again. So lots of data points there. I don't know, I might be like so stubborn, but that's part of what avoidant personality disorder does. They say that there are neural pathways that get sort of carved into your brain, and it's almost impossible for you to think a different way other than the way you've always thought. Maybe that's it. I do have a personality disorder. It doesn't go away. It's always there. There's nothing I can do to fix it at this point. Now, again, I am older, and if you're younger than late 20s, 30, there's a very good chance that you can actually actively change your personality and no longer have a personality disorder. I'm past that. I don't know. So I am fighting that on a daily basis. Now, maladaptive coping technique would just be like, this is classic avoidant personality disorder. This is avoidant personality disorder, which is this person, whoever, based on their behavior, either they don't want to have anything to do with me, they don't like me, or, despite what they're actually saying, I know more than them. They don't like me. Or, I'm not good for them, or I'm intrinsically, this is what my thing is that I have this black mark that is just there all the time. But basically, whatever it is, it's like a dog on a bone. It will keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. Oh, she's back. Speak of the devil. She's not a devil. She's a little mean. But then she is a little old too. She's almost 15. And she's ornery. Yeah. So again, a maladaptive coping technique would be find an excuse, cut this person out. For your best interest, for their best interest, whatever it is, the brain will find a reason to cut the person out of your life. But then I hate the terminology, but then you're safe. See, then you don't get stressed by this person trying to figure out what they're doing, trying to figure out, how they're thinking, especially when they're not interacting with you, which means you can't ask them, hey, what is going on with you? So your brain will then come up with a reason to cut them out. Adaptive coping technique is to basically ruminate on whatever the excuse was they gave you, and to believe that and to remind yourself of that over and over and over again. I mean, it's not something that normal people, forgive the phrase, have to do, but it is definitely adaptive coping technique to fight whatever it is, this default thought that you have in your head. Because this is true. You're to blame is what your brain is going to say. You've done something, even if you can't figure out what it is and the person you're talking to can't tell you what it is. Even if they insist there's no rejection or preference for another anything, then you, and you're still insisting that there is some sort of, oh, well, I'm not worthy, and you're picking somebody, because, that's another thing, that term, it's rejection that you're afraid of. That does not feel right to me. It doesn't feel like it's a rejection. It's more like the person came to their senses. That's not a rejection. They're just, being smart and looking out for themselves. That's not a rejection in my mind. And it's wrong. It is technically a rejection, but it doesn't feel like that. It's more like I said, it feels like they're doing the correct thing. The world is locking back into place, as it should have been. Things are being corrected. It's not a rejection. It's just things are catching up. I don't know. It's hard to explain how my brain works. It's because my brain is wrong and broken a lot of times. Anyway, but again, that is something that just feels like air. It's so weird to hear somebody say, well, this is a strange thing, because it's like, no, this is reality. This is how life is. What are you talking about? So I'm kind of rambling. But that is definitely real. This feeling like you caused something even when somebody tells you, no, there's this other stuff going on. I mean, if you're supposed to have coffee with somebody and there is a massive car accident and they can't get to you, the reason they're not having coffee with you is there is a car accident. The reason they're not having coffee with you is not because you're unworthy and disgusting and they've found somebody better and they don't want to waste their time with you. But your brain will tell you that. So fight against it. Fight against it with the facts. Say, listen, I was told this, and this is a fact, and this is verifiable. This is not reality, what my brain is telling me. And that is how you cope with that particular maladaptive coping technique as a person with avoidant personality disorder. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, that basically what you have to do is you have to hammer yourself again and again and again with verifiable facts, because logic won't work. Your logic is broken when it comes to you and you alone. Your logic says you're to blame for everything. You're a disgusting and worthless person. And suck it up and accept that you're the cause. And that's not true. And like I said, I'm going through this actually double, or maybe by like 100-fold. One, I'm going through it with my son, who is very actively saying point blank, I am the one to blame for what he is going through, which is crazy. Sorry to say that about my own kid, but that's him taking advantage and saying, okay, I don't want to take responsibility. I'm going to find somebody else and make them take responsibility. The other thing, like I said, is I've got a person who has a life, God forbid, and good or bad, that means that there are priorities that have nothing to do with me. This is one of the things I told my kid again and again, which is kind of extremely rude. I was trying to make him understand about responsibility, which is, if one of the cats craps on the floor, you did not crap on the floor, but the cat can't pick it up. So as a human being, you have to pick it up. And even though you're not the one that crapped on the floor. Speaking of which, there's Pants. She doesn't do that normally. But that's life. It's kind of, it's kind of in a twisted way. Like the complete opposite of that is what avoidant people do. They take responsibility for things that they shouldn't, that they have nothing to do with, and they try to find a way to make it all about them. And that's not an ego thing. It's more like the way of ordering the world. Things like big car accidents and traffic jams, that's random and weird. If you could control, how you interact with people and know, okay, if I act this way, this is going to be the response. And then you're in control. You can predict what's going to happen in your life. You're not going to be blindsided by some thing happening. That's Pansy still. She's hanging out by the lights. Anyway, and I think that's what my issue is. Plus also, it's painful to watch somebody go through emotional upheaval. So if there's some random thing that you can't control that just happens to somebody in your life, that sucks. And it would be way easier if you could somehow say, okay, well, if I control my life in a perfect way, this thing that happened would not affect this other person as badly. I know this is kind of nuts thinking and I'm pushing it really hard, but seriously. And therefore, if you could control yourself and hit some ideal, then the other person would not hurt as badly. And I think that might have something to do with it. But the reality is, you can't control everything. You control far less than you really think you can. You can only control your conscious reaction at any given time. Your unconscious reaction you can't control, and you can't control anything else in the world. I mean, I suppose you could go dig a hole. That would be controlling the earth. But other than that, you can't control it. You don't control it. You're not responsible. Even though you want to be. You want to beat yourself up for it. You want to blame yourself. You want to take responsibility for it and therefore be in control of this aspect of your life that you're not in control of. So, again, when this hits, realize it's not about you beating yourself up, even though that's how it's manifesting. It's a maladaptive coping technique to try to better predict the world and prepare yourself for what's going to happen. But that's not an accurate life technique. You can't predict what other people are going to do. You can't predict how life is going to happen. You can't control it. So when you start to beat yourself up about it, what you're doing is you're taking out the positive, which is being able to control life. And all you're stuck with is the negative, which is beating yourself up. So, counteract it with reality, with whatever's actually happening, whatever the real excuse is. Encourage the people in your life to actually fill you in about what is going to happen and what's going on. And if they have to take a break, why? Oh, I'm going on vacation for a week. Then they don't ghost you. Ghosting for somebody with avoidant personality disorder is like nearly deadly. And you take whatever the real reason, concrete reason, and you just, every single time you get a thought of, oh, I'm not good enough for this person. Oh, somebody else is better than this person. And the worst of all is you see somebody going through hell and they've got an absolute shit show in their life. And you're like, oh, the shit show is even better than me. If they had, the choice, they would choose the shit show over me. Not true. They've got to put their energy into the shit show to fix the shit show. They can't spare one bit of energy on a positive part of their life. So it's actually kind of a compliment because they're saying you're positive compared to the shit show. Therefore, they're not dealing with you because they know that the positivity can wait until they've dealt with whatever reality is in front of them right now. Your brain will not allow that to work. That will melt your brain. But that's really what's going on. So don't try to focus and change that because you're never going to do it. If you actually have avoidant personality disorder, even though that is like reality of what's going on, you're never going to be able to accept that in your head. So, again, just focus on the absolute facts. This person has a project they need to work on. This person has something going on with another person in their life. This person is exhausted and ill, whatever it is. Focus on the facts of the person have given you every time the nasty thought pops up in your head, the avoidant thought, and counteract it over and over and over again. And again, if you possibly can, cultivate with all your, just say, listen, I worry a lot. Please save me from worrying. Just give me a little bit of information. Then I won't have to worry. I'm not trying to pry. Just, a couple words so I don't have to worry anymore. And usually people will do that. Or they'll say, it's going to be a surprise for you. In which case, oh well, you got a surprise coming. You got to deal with that. Anyway, again, this is a response to the video that came out today from Dr. Todd Grande. It was a good video, even though it was like I said, a little bit convoluted because he was trying to cover everything in the sun all in one video. It was pretty impressive. And not all of it I agree with, but I thought it was a really good video, and I highly suggest that you watch it.